welcome to your practice. Hannah here from Tula Being Online Yoga Studio. We're going to need a couple of props for today's practice. We're heading into a little Myofascial Release practice. So if you happen to have a yoga block, that would be fabulous. If not, you can utilize a towel or a blanket. We'll definitely need a towel or a blanket for another pose anyway. So do grab one of those. If you like using a pillow for your head at some point, you might grab one. I didn't grab one today. You might use that to even put between the legs as well. So just maybe gather a couple of props and then I'll find you back on the mat in a moment. So we're going to start lying down on our back. Today's practice is a focus on our breath. And they say that if you can breathe, you can do yoga. Incredibly simplistic, of course. The idea is that yoga is for everybody, and we're always trying to match it to what our body and our mental state needs on any particular day. That being said, breathing, yes, simple, but for some of us, can be incredibly elusive. We may not actually be able to connect oh so easily to our breath. For some of us, our breath isn't always that calming connection that we need. So just know that, yes, that's a simple phrase. If you can breathe, you can do yoga, but let's not put too much expectations on ourselves to completely transform ourselves over the next 10 minutes. Just see kind of how it rolls out for you today. Let's start lying on our backs. And of course, we're going to start by connecting to our natural state. I've chosen to plant feet onto the earth, knees are bent. You could have the legs long. Just see if you can maybe rest your hands somewhere on the lower belly, the abdomen, lower ribs, just for the next few moments. Now, without changing the breath at all, are you able to simply observe over the next good few rounds of breath? You may have heard me and other teachers often refer to observing, being curious rather than manipulating or judging or having to change anything in this moment. And it's a beautiful mindful practice that yoga can offer us. So if it is possible, just noticing how different parts of the body move with each inhale and each exhale. There is no force or challenge that is needed here, just a sense of curiosity. So depending on what you've just done before you started your practice today, I'm guessing for a lot of us, the breath is actually quite shallow in this moment. But if you just ran or were moving very quickly, or perhaps you've just done a shot of coffee, maybe you notice that the breath is actually much bigger and larger. But it might actually be quite hard to feel a whole lot of movement. And there's no judgment needed around that. But let's just see how things develop and potentially change over the next few movement practices that we're going to bring our bodies into. I'm going to invite you, when you're ready, to gently roll over to one side and then just sort of either grabbing your block if that's what you've got, or you'll roll up your towel, your blanket into quite a nice tight roll. You won't get as much feedback with the blanket, so just be aware of that, but you'll still get some feedback. My block can be a little on the firm side, so I'm actually going to cover mine with a little bit of extra padding because we're going to work into the armpit area. So just snuggling yourself onto the side and not overthinking which arm you're working with. We're basically going to do both sides, one after the other. If you wanted to, you could bring a pillow and bring it between the knees. But for now, I'm trying to find somewhat sort of a centered position with my armpit resting on top of my prop. And then the other hand, I'm going to just bring as a little kickstand for my head. If that's not comfortable, you can just let yourself kind of relax a little bit more. We will be changing the shape of this sort of every minute roughly. So my other hand is also a little kickstand here just on the side in front of me, or you might bring it over your hip, your waist, just whatever's working, what's comfortable. And you might have quite a lot of feedback initially as you're kind of just feeling in here to sensations, and that's the myofascia part, getting into the tissue in a massaging kind of way, deep tissue. And maybe you could invite that rib cage at the bottom to really sink down towards the earth. Maybe you could invite that rib cage on the bottom here to expand between the inhales. So I'm going to change this up and actually lean a little bit back. And it might be that you move a centimetre rolling back, or it might be that you can open a little bit more. So I'm just kind of moving myself back here. I did move a little bit on the block so that I didn't fall off. And you might change the shape of the leg. So if you feel like you can, perhaps the top leg will lift. So I'm getting a little more sensation now through the back of the armpit, working a little more into the lats potentially as well. Working a little more around the back edge of the ribs. And just notice how that affects the breath again, perhaps. You might be noticing that the breath is getting a little caught. Maybe you're not. It's all about observing here. If you feel like you can let your head rest, you could. Again, for me, having my head upright just feels comfortable in this moment. And it isn't about how far back you can go. Just sort of doing what comes somewhat naturally here to you. Last couple of breaths leaning back. You might notice that there is more space for those last few breaths. Perhaps the hips drop back further. And then we're going to tip the weight forwards. So slowly start to bring the knees closer together again. Maybe you've got that cushion between the knees once again. And then this time, I'm just aware my microphone's just here. I'm just going to move that out of the way. I was about to clamp it. So this time I'm actually going to rest the other arm down towards the ground. And you might be able to rest your head, but the sensation now is coming through the front of the shoulder, the pec. And if it's possible, are you able to find a sense of malleability, if that is even a word, through that shoulder, through the ribs. Maybe noticing sensations like sand shifting underneath your feet when you walk on the beach, creating a little footprint. And last couple of breaths here. And then we'll come on out and we'll completely release. So just moving the props out of the way, and perhaps you'd like to just settle onto your back again for a moment. And just feeling into a sense of release, just like you would in a yin practice, a moment of rebound here. And just noticing perhaps any feedback that you're experiencing in the body. Maybe you've noticed that the breath feels a little different. The posture feels different. And then we'll be working onto the second side. So I'm actually going to just roll up and then flip to the other side, just so that I'm still facing you guys. You may do the same as well. So maybe you'll have the rolled up blanket. I've got my block in place there. So we start somewhat sort of centered. I'm going to prop my head here. You might be wiggling around a little bit until you can get into a place of somewhat comfort. You may have noticed over time that our emotions and breath are very much connected. Maybe you notice when you're anxious, worried, that the breath gets quite caught. You might catch yourself actually holding your breath even. This is very common for us humans. It's our nervous system kind of almost shutting down slightly. The feeling of caught breath. So instead of making our nervous system feel like we are a rabbit caught in the headlights, we want to see if we can nurture the nervous system so that the feedback from our brain and nerves correlate a sense of ease. And this has a knock-on effect throughout our whole being, our digestion, our hormones, and of course our emotions, feelings. We're going to just tip the weight back here first. So I like to bring that top leg and just touch the foot back behind. I might do just a little wriggle here on my block. And you're just tipping the weight a little further back so you feel sensations happening in the back there. You don't have to have your head supported. On the other side, I felt like I didn't want it supported. This side, I feel like I can, a little easier. So you might have noticed the same or difference. And the aim is not that I'm trying to stamp my hips to the ground behind me, but over time you might notice that there can be a little more rocking back action. I'm not rocking back and forth, but every now and then maybe I could soften a little more and the hips could drop a little further back, closer to the earth. Therefore, the sensation in my shoulder and the ribs tips further back too, a little bit. And you might notice whilst we're practicing, the breath becomes more caught. So just try to stabilize inhales and exhales. And then the final part, again, will be rocking our way all the way forwards. So I'm going to drop that top knee down and then turn to sort of face down. And last couple of breaths. And then again, we'll come on off and just take a moment lying on your back. And just feeling into both sides now. You might do something automatic like I did without thinking. Taking a big inhale and a long exhale. Maybe you have a little more spaciousness occurring through the ribs, through the lungs. We spend a lot of our time hunched and rounded through the shoulders, looking down at screens. So right now, sort of feeling into a sense of spaciousness and openness. And then we're going to roll again to the side. Let's lift ourselves up and we're going to grab our blanket or our towel. And we're going to roll this up, but perhaps you won't roll it into the full roll. So let me just move back again here. So I'm just going to take one end and I might roll it a little bit more than halfway, but I probably don't want to roll it the whole way here. And then what we're going to do is, I've just got a little bit of excess blanket there. My pelvis is going to land onto that, so you've got a little extra padding through hips and pubic bone. And then we're going to wedge that roll between the lowest rib and the hip bone, so it does go in to the fleshy part of the belly. And when you nestle into it, you might notice that there's a little sort of feedback straight away. Perhaps it's too much and you'll unroll it a bit more so it's not quite so big. If you do want more feedback, of course, you then roll it into a larger roll. So just setting yourself up, and it could be that you want a pillow for your forehead out in front. I just didn't grab one today. And you might want to rest your forehead perhaps onto the back of your hands. I've just bent the elbows out to the side, and we're nice and relaxed through those legs. Initially, you might notice yourself resisting pressing your belly into the roll. But over time, could I invite you to actually let your belly fill up as it would naturally? And invite that resistance and feedback. So you might notice your body rise and fall away from the towel and the earth quite a bit, perhaps, and keep encouraging that fullness of the belly. You might gently whisper to yourself, I am breathing in, and encourage that belly to expand.
So it might be that the inhales are a little bit more focused and the exhales just kind of allow them to occur without any force at all. And it could be this invitation to truly let go on the exhalations as you notice your body gently lower back down. So maybe it's that concentration on the inhale, I am breathing in. Perhaps you even add another word, I am breathing in to fullness. And 3 more breaths. And then we'll think about slowly, once again, coming on up. I'm just going to remove that blanket and again, roll onto my back. I'm just going to flip the blanket towards the back edge of the mat. And for me, I'm going to rest the back of my neck into the roll. You don't have to do this. It's just something that I quite like to do. And once again, rest. I'm not going to bring my hands onto my belly in any way. I just want to let things completely let go. And it might be that you do just end here with a couple of inhales through the nose and out through the mouth before you settle into a short shavasana. I am breathing in to fullness. When you feel ready, adding a little gentle movement here and there until you're ready to feel ready to roll it off, to come on up. Let's end our practice seated, thumbs into heart space. Thumbs into the center of forehead. Thank you for joining today's practice. Have a beautiful day. Thank you for watching this video, and I hope you enjoyed it. Please don't forget to like it below, subscribe to my channel, and hit the bell icon.
Not only will this keep you up to date with my offerings, but will keep content like To The Being free and accessible to all.